So, my fiancé has had a lot of paranormal stuff happen to him throughout his life, and it scares the living hell out of him. First, I want to share one experience that we actually had together. So last Thursday night, we were driving around looking for something to do around 11. Our friend Sierra called us and asked if we wanted to meet her and her new boyfriend at a diner in town. We got there, had some pies, and decided that we should all do something together. None of us had work Friday, so we were going to hit the bars. Me and my fiancé went to grab another friend of ours who wanted to come too. After we got him, we all met back up at the 7-Eleven. It turned out that all the bars were empty, so we were brainstorming what to do instead. And that's when Sierra suggested that we go to the cemetery. We live in a city at the end of the Oregon Trail. In what used to be the outskirts of the city is a little park. The park is located at the top of a large cliff. Also, about a mile from the parking lot is a cemetery you can only get to by walking. The cemetery used to be an Indian graveyard, apparently, but over time, they would put the people who lived in the city in the graveyard too. Also, the place has a dark history, and settlers used to chase Indians off of cliffs in droves there, and many people of Indian descent have committed suicide by jumping off of that cliff. Honestly, the whole place has a creepy vibe to it, even during the day. Anyway, my fiancé was really against it, but the group talked him into just going into the park. We get there around 1 a.m. and we're standing at the top of the cliff which overlooks the city. Everything is okay for a while, but then my fiancé quietens everyone down, and I swear to God, we both heard footsteps to our left. Our whole group was to our right. We freaked out and made the whole group leave. As we were leaving, I looked at my fiancé, and something to our left caught my eye. It was a bright ball. It came from the top of the trees, made an arc, and came back down. It wasn't transparent like a flashlight. It was solid, like if the moon were really far off in the distance, but still really bright and white. I even thought that it was the moon for a second, but then I looked up and saw that the moon was big and full and red from the smoke from the fires all over the state. Later in the car, I asked my fiancé and our friend we picked up if they'd seen it too, and they had, so I wasn't going crazy for a second. There was actually something there. As we got to the car, my fiancé looked behind us, and he swears that he saw another white orb thing in the forest. But it couldn't have been a lamp or something because we were at the edge of the city and there weren't houses for miles that way. Also, there were no other cars in the parking lot, so it couldn't have been another person. Anyway, we drove out of there as fast as we could on that one-lane ancient road. We dropped off our friend and he had me drive his car because he was just too freaked out. By the time I drove myself home, he seemed fine though. Looking back, I really wish I had just spent the night with him. That night, after he dropped me off, everything was fine for a while. But once we started driving around the back roads near his house, weird things began to happen. He listens to music on Pandora while driving. Well, mid-song, the track somehow skipped from Tiny Dancer to Dance with the Devil. Then, something black ran in front of him. He slammed on the brakes so as not to hit it. He looked behind him in the mirror to make sure that there wasn't someone driving behind him, and that's when he saw a pair of eyes and a dark outline of a person in his back seat. Then the song changed back to Tiny Dancer, and the figure was just gone. He parked the car in his driveway and ran inside in a full-on panic. Nothing else happened that night, but he was a bag of nerves for days. I'm really not sure what any of this was, or what it means, or if that thing is still following him. I just know that it freaked us out really badly, and we don't want to go back to that park ever again. If you guys know anything, I'd actually really like the help. So, let me tell you about a series of events that I like to call the Needles. It all started when I was 17. I had a dream I found a sewing needle in my mouth, and it was really creepy. The next day, I found such a needle stuck the pointy end outwards in my hairbrush. It lasted 3 months too. Almost every day, I would find a sewing needle somewhere in the house where it shouldn't be, like in the bathtub, the laundry basket, sink or floor, or, the more scary part, stuck in the bed under me, in my pillow, in my hair sometimes, in my sheets, and the one that disturbed me the most was in my knee, like edgeways, stabbed into my knee, and it didn't even wake me up. Strangely enough, though, it just stopped suddenly. Nothing special. I've also had weird teeth marks on my elbows, arms, legs, or other unexplained cuts and scars or scratches before, and during that a few times. Now, a few years pass. I'm 21, and I got to thinking about the forest outside my town. I was discussing it with my friend, and we realized that neither of us had ever seen or heard many animals, bugs or insects, or a bird or even a flower or a plant other than weeds and trees in there. What everyone who lives here did see and know, however, was very gruesome and regular animal sacrifices all around the deepest parts of it. You would find animal heads, skinned animals hung on wire, also burned animals and birds, cats and dogs. Really anything. In fact, 2 years ago, people also found a guy I knew that was missing, and he was killed. You might ask why people go there in the first place then, and the answer is bunkers, dozens of them. And back in the day, like in the 90s, you could have found such human bones in that forest, or you would find bunkers, weapons, bullet shells, and people just generally like to explore such places. About the human bones. Every few years or so, they would try to build a hotel or mall somewhere, and they'd discover a mass grave or a few skulls from various times in history in the middle of the city. Really. The same happened each time they started building residential areas too. My town has always been a popular spot during history and wars. If anyone is interested, it's Malbork of Marienburg, the one with the biggest brick castle. Anyway, back to the forest. Ask anyone over 30 here, and they'll say that there have been cult practices, black masses or something in the forest. I wanted to investigate it, and here are the most interesting attempts. The forest is divided into 2 parts. The first one is just outside of town and has tracks and some people around for bonfires or bicycle riding sometimes. The other part is further, bigger and unattended. It also goes much deeper than the first. I tried to enter the first forest through the back of a graveyard once, Friday, 3 a.m., and we encountered a guy, just standing on the edge of the forest, not moving at all, just looking at us. We came to around 20 meters to him, and he still didn't want to move, so we just turned back. We tried to perform a cleansing ritual with my friend in the first part as well. We wanted to make a bonfire, but for some strange reason, nothing would burn or catch fire. I still regret not recording this, but we would stick paper to a lighter and it would just turn black, no flames. We also heard rustling, and we saw a shadow climbing a slope on our way, and it just ran off. The latest 2 that might have led to what I've experienced lately, we tried to investigate the second forest, in the middle of the night in fact. We came close to a bunker, and then heard the loudest sound, like the dropping of a concrete ceiling dropping to the floor. It was a super loud thump. That's the best that I can explain it. We approached slowly and came inside shakily, and the wicket would keep closing and opening. A stone moved across the floor like someone kicked it, and there were runes and cryptic writings drawn everywhere on the walls. There were some pentagrams and 666 signs, but that was about it. Outside, when we looked around, we could make out specific shapes made out of twigs, kind of triangle cones, big and small, even hung on the trees. When we came home, though, I had a red bruisey mark on my shoulder, and me and my friend had identical 2 thin scratches that looked like they were made with a fork on our bodies. And ever since then, I've had this, invasion of black orbs, and every single person who's come here would see them. I tried to perform some sort of cleansing ritual again on the house, and they did go away for a while, but the eerie feeling of someone being there remained. So, this brings me up to today. A few days ago, I wanted to show someone that forest, and we went there by car. We went really deep where I haven't been before. I think it was a place where they once excavated ancient graves, and we discovered a place that had some construction that looked somewhat different from a bunker. And this time, the triangle cones were everywhere. Every single step you took, there were some there. Some were really huge and made out of multiple twigs per arm, and then we noticed that there was a huge cut-down birch, and they don't grow in that forest, and one smaller cone made out of the birch. When we came closer, there was a crow, impaled and burned. Anyway, after some time exploring, we decided to go, and we just ran off. It was in the afternoon, and everything was fine when we got back. But the next day, I woke up with identical red bruising on my arm, and have been seeing and hearing things in my house all the time. What convinced me to seek some insight and help in this situation is that I've been marked today. I have these strange markings appearing on my body. They're kind of like brownish ink, but you can wash them off, and they don't itch or burn or hurt or anything. They're not scratched on or anything either. They just look kind of like regular water paint. But it's strange because they're clearly numbers and letters and things, and I have no idea what's going on.